Okay, Rabbi Isai, I apologize. I'm a little bit croaky. Baruch Hashem, feeling good though. We began discussing the piece from Rabbi Nachman last week, where Rabbi Nachman speaks about the stupidity of war. That this is war bichlal is a thing that we are very much hoping goes extinct. And we also noted that yes, there is a concept in halacha called milchemes mitzvah. It exists. But not all mitzvahs are mitzvahs that you want to keep. There are many mitzvahs that you hope that you never keep. Nobody is interested in Ben Sora, Moira, and in Irani Dachas, and in executing people that are chayv misa and based in. There's a lot of things that we very much hope that we never have to keep. And Sachakol, okay, the Rebbeinu Shalom speaks to Klal Yisrael in a contemporary way. There are many mitzvahs that we are hoping that we don't have to engage with ever again. Meaning, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will reinstitute Hashiva Shavtein Kvar Yishanu V'Yatzein Kvar Tchila. We should have a Sanhedrin. We should have in the Lishkas Hagazos, and we should be able to be done din in nefashos and never need to. Right? We should be able to judge capital cases and never have capital cases to judge. We'd like the capacity and the ability. Meaning, that's part and parcel of creating a just society. But anybody want to do this? I hope not. I hope not. So, within that context, we need to understand what the purpose is of milchamas, of the Jewish people, within the realm and the rubric of the Torah, and perhaps, and this is a critical moment in the Parshas HaShavua, it's a critical moment that's important to understand, because right now, we're standing between Har Sinai and Chet HaEgel. That's where we're holding right now. We've got Truma Tetzaveh, and then Kisisa hasn't happened yet. Machlokes Rashi Ramban, whether or not the tzivui of the Mishkan, that Hashem commanded the Mishkan before the Egel or after the Egel. The truth is, it's an older machlokes than Rashi and the Ramban. It's a machlokes between the Zohar Kodesh and the Medrash Rabbah. There's a Shem Shmuel, which is very kedai to see on that. Maybe we'll see if we have time. We might mention a little piece of it. But right now, where we are holding in the parashas is before the Chet HaEgel. And one wonders, for a moment, what the idea of Milchama looks like before the Chet HaEgel. And this is the piece that we're going to see in Rav Kook. Because if I were to ask you, from the perspective of Klal Yisrael that crossed through Yam Suf, how are they going to enter into Eretz Yisrael? What was the method?
They were going to fight their way in?
Nope. Namogu kol yoshvei Canaan tipol aleim emasav afachad bigdal zarachad mukaven.
Right, so they'll just run away.
Total surrender.
Yeah.
Total surrender. The truth is, that idea of total surrender, victory without going to war, victory without a bullet being fired, without a chayal needing to risk their life, that was the great tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu that we say every time we open the Aron Kodesh. Says the Sforno, Vayi bin Sar and Vayom Moshe Kuma Hashem ve'afutzo oivecha ve'anusa mesanecha mipanecha means when the Aaron would travel, Moshe Rabbeinu would declare, this is how the Sforno explains, Kuma Hashem, rise up Hashem, ve'afutzo oivecha, and your enemies are going to run away. How the enemies just going to run away? Namogu kol yeshvei Canaan tipal aleim amasav avachad. Everybody would be terrified to stand up to the Jewish people. Everybody would be terrified. Now the truth is, this has happened, to the best of my knowledge, 3 times since 1948. Probably more, but 3 times. Before that, if you're traveling down the light rail in Yerushalayim, so every stop they have in English and in Hebrew and in Arabic, right? There's one stop where they had to, the first time I remember taking this, it was funny. There's one stop that they only have it in one language, and that's Davidka Square. Because it used to say Davidka, 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 right? And then they were just like, that's stupid. We'll just say Davidka once. What was the Davidka? So the Davidka was this primitive Israeli artillery, right? Never worked. It never worked. It never fired a single shot.
It made a big noise.
But it made a big noise. And this, my dear friends, is how the city of Tzfas was conquered in 1948. Because the Haganah went up to like one of the mountaintops by Tzfat, and they tried to fire off the Davidka artillery mortar thing, and it didn't work, and it made an enormous noise. And all of the Arabs that were planning attacks or whatever it was, they heard the noise, and they thought that the Jews had called on the God of the Jews to bring another earthquake to Tzfas, because Tzfas has had a number of earthquakes, some of them in recent memory of the people that lived there. It's a famous story of the Bas Ayin, that the Bas Ayin was saved from an earthquake. The Ari Shul has the whole story of the Bas Ayin, how he was saved from the earthquake. And they were terrified, and they ran away. Not a single shot was fired, and the residents, the Muslim Arab residents of Tzfas ran away. This happened as well, and this I heard from Rav David Goren. Rav David Goren is the grandson of Rav Shlomo Goren. He was Chavrusa Marin Keren B'Yavne, a few years older than me. He's the Yerush of all of his grandfather's manuscripts. Tremendous Talmid Chachams, like a real Ilui. He said to me that 1967, after the third day of the 6-Day War, so Rav Goren famously, Harabait Bi'adeinu, HaKotel Bi'adeinu. And then he says to the Tzanchanim, he looks at them, he goes, all right, we're on a roll, you know. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's with us. We're going from here to Hebron. We're going to take Hebron as well. And they said to him, amazing, fantastic, let's do it. Tomorrow morning, we're waking up, we're going to Hebron. So that was the plan. He woke up the next morning, and they'd already left. He's like, chutzpah, bunch of clowns that left without me. So he calls his driver. Driver says, no. He says, we're going, we have to catch up. So they get into their Jeep, and like there's like the dirt road from like Yerushalayim towards Hebron Gush Etzion, and like they're like in the Jeep. And Rav Goren's like, go faster, we have to catch up. He drives all the way from the Ir Ha'atikah of Yerushalayim to Marat HaMachpelah in Hebron. He gets there, and he's looking around for like his men. And nobody's there. They had gotten orders to go somewhere else. So it's just him and the driver. And he gets to Hebron, and the Mufti of Hebron walks out and says to him, here are the keys, this belongs to you. So he said, okay. He went up, he put the Israeli flag at the top of Maras Mapela. Not a single bullet was fired, nothing. And the most recent time that this happened, by the way, is Syria, like a couple of months ago. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated this whole thing, and all of a sudden, Syria, which was like an Iranian proxy stronghold, all of a sudden, overnight disappeared. Without a bullet being fired. Without an Israeli soldier even needing to step foot into Syria. The entirety of the Syrian army and disappeared. For like 2 weeks after the collapse of Syria, Israel basically just flew all over Syria and bombed all of the military installations. Without anybody saying anything, doing anything. They were like, well, we don't know exactly who's taking over here, but we definitely don't want to find out. So ta-da! And there was like somebody in the news who was like, is Israel chayiv dinimominus to Syria because it's their property? Okay, no. We'll worry about that later. Maybe, who cares? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like, go for it. Kuma Hashem v'yafutza ovecha v'yanusa misanecha mipanecha. How does that happen? How does it happen that we have the koach to do such things? So I'll tell you a gra. It's a gra from Megillas Esther, because we're already Shloshim Yom Kerem Chag. It's Rosh Chodesh Adar. From the Yerushalmi, it's Kedai to know the Yerushalmi as a din, which probably passing like b'diavad, is that if a person knows that they're going to be traveling over Purim, and they're going to be ba'onis, they're not going to have a Megillah, they're not going to have access to Megillah, and they read the Megillah today from Rosh Chodesh Adar, from from Aleph Adar, the Yerushalmi says you're already Yotze. Mikra Din, we don't paskin like that. We would say that you should still read it, and if you do it now, you shouldn't say brachos. But the Yerushalmi says that maybe you'll be Yotze because HaChodesh Asher Nefach Lahem Miyagim L'Simcha, because the whole Chodesh is the Chodesh of Purim. So the Gra says, it's emphasis in the Gra, it's also in the Baal Shem Tov. So there's some Torahs that it's the source is interesting, came in both directions. But it's once you hear it, it's very pashut, that and very profound. Vashti is the representation of Bavel. She's the last survivor of Babylonia. And Achashverosh says to her to show up in front of him. And Chazal say with nothing. She was supposed to show up naked. Just wearing Kesa Malchus. That's it. V'loi ba'a. So the tzaddikim explain, because the koyach of the world of Klippa is only in the Klippa. Meaning, there's nothing of essence there. There's nothing real. And when evil is asked to show up without the levush, without the dressing, without the externalities, v'loi ba'a, there's nothing to arrive. It's empty. It's fundamentally empty. It's just the illusion of what's on the outside. So what's the Malchus of Bavel without all the levushim? Nothing. So Vashti has no capacity to arrive, no ability to show up. Which is why in the davening of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur we say V'chol harisha kula ke'ashan tichle. And the Growers Makpid, you don't say be'ashan tichle, but ke'ashan tichle. There were some nuschos that said be'ashan. What's the difference? Kol harisha kula, that all of the evil, we say ke'ashan tichle should dissipate like smoke. Not be'ashan, not in smoke. Meaning not that we need to blow it up. But ke'ashan, because it's nothing, it's empty. All of that evil is vacuous. There's nothing tethering it. It's empty. It's ephes. So kol harisha kula ke'ashan tichle, it should dissipate like smoke. Not that we have to blow it up. And that's the nakuda that Rav Kook is going to say to us this afternoon. If you take a look at the bottom of the page, Ois Daled in Arza Milchama, Rav Kook tells us the following: Lulei chet ha'egel hayu ha'umas yoshves Eretz Yisrael mashlimos im Yisrael u'maidas lahem. Were it not for the chet ha'egel, the nations that were residents of Eretz Yisrael at that point in time would have surrendered and made peace with us. They wouldn't have gone to war. We would have walked in and they would have said, Shalom Aleichem, here's the keys. You want us to stay? We'll stay. You want us to go? We'll go. Up to you. Ki shem Hashem hanikra aleihem hayema'orer bahem yiras haroimemus. Because the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu imbued on us, within us and shining from us, would have awakened in them yiras haroimemus. They would have felt a deep fear of what it means to stand in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to stand in the presence of the Shekhinah. And there would have been no idea of war at all. It wouldn't have been necessary. It would not have been necessary at all. They would have looked at us and said, okay, understood. Understood. This Nakuda, which Rav Kook is paraphrasing, Ki Shem Hashem Ekra Habu Gadol Elokenu, Ki Shem Hashem Nikra Aleinu, that when we are embodying as Klal Yisrael, Ratzon Hashem, the ideas of Hashem, the ideals of Hashem, the mission and purpose of Hashem, so what happens is we rise to the Tzelem Elokim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created at the beginning of the Bria, at the beginning of creation. Where Chazal say that all of the animals were terrified of Adam Rishon. Not just the animals, but the Malachim. Because they saw Adam Rishon as a representation of Malchus Hashem in this world. And that's the job of the Jewish people. we are collectively supposed to represent and to be Malchus Hashem. This is what the Ramban explains at the beginning of Sefer Shmos. Hein ha-merkava. What you say? Yes. We are the Tzelem Elokim. We are that Tzelem Elokim means the representation of the Ratzon Hashem in the world. This is what the Gemara in Yevamos is Darish, which has been the reason for anti-Semitism. One of the excuses. The Gemara says, Atem Kurim Adam, Ve'enu Masailim Kurim Adam. You're called Adam, and the nations of the world are not called Adam. So the Rishonim already point out there, as a Taisus, that it doesn't say that they're not people. There is a difference being called Adam and Ha-Adam. Adam means Adam Arishan. Atem Kurim Adam. You, bless you. You, the Jewish people, are called Adam Arishan, that original Tzelem Elokim. The Umm are not called Adam, they're Ha-Adam, B'nai Ha-Adam. They are the descendants of Adam. But the idea and ideal of Adam Arishan before the Chet, that's Klal Knesset Yisrael. And the whole of the Bria were terrified. All of the animals and all of the Malachim looked at Adam Arishan. The Gemara says that the angels wanted to sing shirs v'tishbachos to Adam Arishan until they saw him sleep. They said, he's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's bizarre. But the point is that Knesset Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, collectively, are that representation of the Tzelem Elokim in the world. Says Rav Kook, and were it to be that we had entered into Eretz Yisrael without the Chet HaEgel, it would be B'darkei Shalom, like it will be B'Yemais HaMashiach. Where the Navi tells us that what they have on from the United Nations, that no nation will take up sword against nation. It's ironic that the UN talks about that, but no. One of the smaller ironies in the world. But the idea being that ultimately, it'll be stupid. This is a dumb thing. That people will see this is what the truth is, and then we won't have to go to war about it.
Why does Hashem engender such a severe punishment for the Chet of the Egel, for that generation?
It's a good shadow. We're going to explain now. We're going to explain. He says, Raka Chet Garam, Chet, this Chet was the cause. Vinis Acher Adavar Alfei Shanim, and this now gets bumped down the road thousands of years. V'chol misibas ha'olam hinam achuzais zoi bazoila avi es arashem ba'olam. Nevertheless, all of the events of the world are all coalescing ultimately, step by step, little by little, to bring the light of Hashem back into the world. V'chet ha'egel yimachel legamre. And that chet ha'egel will disappear entirely, will be eradicated entirely. Umimela, and then automatically kol re'em yakirum kihem zera berach Hashem. When we have removed the stain of the chet ha'egel from us, the rest of the world will see, Taka, these people are banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. These are the people that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has imbued with this ability to bring His koach and His presence and His ratzon into the world. Va'olam yitukan ba'orech shalom v'rik she'ava, and the world will be corrected, will be fixed with ways of peace and feelings of love. V'noyam Hashem yuchash b'chol levav, and the pleasantness and the sweetness of Hashem, lachzois b'nam Hashem, to perceive the sweetness of Hashem, will be felt inside of every heart. La'anig ruach ula'adi neshama, to bring pleasure and enjoyment to the ruach, the spirit, to la'adi neshama, and enjoyment to the neshama, l'chol bahem tichya nefesh kol chai, and create life within everything. Which all references in Psukim, which depending on the time maybe we'll explain. But you ask the question, well, what's so bad about the Chet HaEgel?
And how do we overcome it?
And how do we overcome it? It's very good. It's a good question. So, everybody agrees that the Chet HaEgel was not Avodah Zarah. All of the Rishonim, all the Achrim, was not Avodah Zarah. It was not Avodah Zarah. Meaning the Jewish people were not trying to replace HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
No, of course not.
What exactly they were trying to do is a big machlokes in the Rishonim, big machlokes in the Mefarshim, what exactly this is. But it's interesting to point out, especially in the context of Parshas Truma coming up. So, before we get to that, it's particularly peculiar that the idea of don't create any graven images is exactly what we do when we build the Mishkan. Inside of the Mishkan, in the inner sanctum of the inner sanctum, is a kaparis that has two kruvim that have images, two idols. Two idols. That's what we have on top of, right? Right? Okay, they're idols. Idols. So graven images. Somebody would put this up in shul. You'd tell them that Avodah Zarah. So, I want to say, just hold off for a second, because I'm going to sound like a kafir, but not such a kafir. Maybe, I hope. Is there elokus in everything? Is there godliness in everything? Yes. But if you worship everything, you're a pantheist, a polytheist, an Avodah Zarah. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in everything, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not supposed to be worshipped in everything. There is godliness, there is the will of God in everything. Even in Avodah Zarah. Meaning even in the Buddha, like that statue, how does that exist in the world? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechadish b'tuva b'chol yom tov ma'aseh v'reishis, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly willing all of creation into existence, which means that even that idol has Ratzon Hashem making it exist. How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu make that exist? Hashem wants that to be there?
It's the same as a rock. He created a rock.
No, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly willing it into existence. This is you take a look in the Shari Yichud Ve'emunah of the Baal HaTanya, and it's what we say in davening. Mechadish b'tuva b'chol yom tov ma'aseh v'reishis. If you take a look at the Talmud Dvara explains that the rachamim of the Ribbono Shel Olam is that at the point in time that a person is doing an Aveira, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still giving them chiyus. Hashem is giving them life. Yes or no? Because if Hashem wanted a person that was doing an Aveira to drop dead, they'd drop dead. Which means that a person doing an Aveira, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants them to be alive. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still willing that person into existence, which means that there is elokus in everything. What's the difference between something that is mutter and something that is asur? So quite literally, the Baal HaTanya explains, mutter means something that is untied. Untied. Matir asurim. It is something that is untied, is released. You can make use of this in Avodas Hashem. What is something that is asur? It is bound up. It is imprisoned. You cannot use this for Avodas Hashem. You can't use this for Avodas Hashem. Mutter means it is available. Asur means it is unavailable. At some point in time, it's a fascinating chazal, that the pig will be kosher. Whether that's literal, figurative, not for now. There's a long Arachaim about this. This is talking about Esav. Yeah, okay. But the idea being that that which is asur, at some point in time, we will understand how to use that for Avodas Hashem. This world has lots of things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says right now, no. At the beginning of the Bria, there was only one thing that was asur. What was asur? Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. And the goal of Adam and Chava was to wait until Shabbos. If you take a look at the Ramchal, Derech Hashem, the 40th Perek Mem, if I'm not mistaken, that's where the Ramchal writes, that Lu Yitzur Adam and Chava would have waited those 6 hours until Shabbos. We wouldn't have to wait 6,000 years. Because the goal is to realize that there is an avoda in waiting. That in that waiting there is a growth, and that there is a self-control, and that there is a restraint, and that connects you beyond the place of understanding to a place of emunah. To be able to say, I don't get it, but I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is real and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is true, and I don't need to freak out about everything. I can hold back, and I know that at some point this will be understandable to me. Because Adam and Chava had no idea. Why did Hashem create something that's asur? How am I supposed to use that for Avodas Hashem? And the answer is you're not. You're supposed to use the experience of not engaging with it for Avodas Hashem. By saying no to that thing, that's the Avodas Hashem. That you can be over Hashem in Sheva Al Taiseh, without doing something. And the Avodah there is in waiting. And the Chet HaEgel, we were there. Nasiv and Nishma and V'yaminu b'Hashem Moshe Avdai. And once again, there were 6 hours that Klal Yisrael needed to wait before realizing that the entirety of the Bria is singing with Ratzon Hashem. And they said, no, we need to find Ratzon Hashem in this golden calf now. And Hashem said, don't do that. You'll build a Mishkan, there'll be a place, V'shachandi b'Seicham, you'll build Yerushalayim, and the whole world will come to it. And people will see how, from the physical world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is everywhere. And instead of waiting to find the Elokus, even in gold and silver, they said, we are going to reinvent it because we can't wait. Which is why the Ikar Avoda to get to Yemos HaMashiach, in addition to all of the other things that we do, is Achak Eloi B'chol Yom Shi'ava. So we wait.
Still doesn't explain why the punishment was so severe for so many generations.
It's not a question of punishment. It is pashut. It's pashut that either you have the capacity to overcome that gap of I don't know what's going on, but I believe that there's a Ribono Shel Olam with a plan, or you cannot. And the fact that we are still dealing with this means that that pigam is still within us, and our job is to get over it. Is to be able to say, I don't know what the Ribono Shel Olam wants from me or from the world, but I know that there is the Ribono Shel Olam, and I'm not going to fall prey to my Yetzer Hara and to Averus and to Kinna and Sinna and Taiva and all of the things that happened around the Egel Hazav and v'chule v'chule. I'm not going to fall prey to that, because the thing that's guiding me is Ratzon Hashem.
So at the time of Kufa of Bayis Rishon, where obviously the status of Bnei Israel was such that the Shekhinah would be able to reside in the Beis HaMikdash, we still weren't able to overcome that problem?
Yeah. And there's a lot to speak about. There's a lot to speak about exactly what went wrong in Bayis Rishon.
That's not factual.
It's a...
Bayis Rishon is not factual.
It was, of course it was. Gila Rai, Shechus Damim, and Avodah Zarah.
They were always Avodah Zarah.
They were all three. All three.
What?
It's been first like that. First, Chazal said that
The whole thing is...
that Gila Rai, Avodah Zarah, and Shechus Damim. All of it in the first place. Second place, is Sinas Chinam. But the Nakuda is, can you live your life according to Ratzon Hashem even when you don't understand what happens between now and then? And that's a central Nakuda. The Kotzker speaks about this a lot in the context of the Chet HaEgel and the Chet of Etzadas Tavera. It's the same Nakuda, which is, there's a Ratzon Hashem that you don't understand. Can you live in this world without needing to jump over? The Ramchal speaks about it in the Maimer HaKivui, where he says that's called tikva, is knowing that there is a line that goes from me to where I'm supposed to be, and I don't know how to get there, but I know that it's there. That's called emunah. And that's something that we need to work on. That's the whole world is the world of tefillah and the world of emunah. That nekuda needs to be jumped over. Yeah.
But it has to be universal among all Jews, right?
Yes.
There are Jews who don't even know that they're Jewish.
Right.
So it's not a matter of educating them to learn to do this. There has to be events that cause them to become aware.
So the avoda is, at its core, each and every Jew starts with us. You start with you, I start with me. and we expand out from there. That's the avoda. That's the avoda always. That it starts with pnimius, and there is a compounding effect of positivity. More people doing more things. It's mafresh and mishnah Maseches Brachos. We don't paskin this way. We paskin sort of like this. Is that when you have 3 Jews that sit down and have a suda, you say nevarich shachalim shalai. When you have 10 Jews, you say nevarich. But the Mishnah lists a whole bunch more possibilities. There's 100 people, there's 1,000 people, that there's more ribui kvod shemaim. So you add more and more and more names of Hashem. Because when there's more Jews, there's more ribui kvod shemaim. More Jews doing good things creates more Shechina. Right? But I'm saying, but it's not just Hadras Melech. It's not just more Malchus. It's more Shechina. It's more Shechina that HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes more present with more Jews doing more good things. Imagine if 10% of the world's Jews were all working on this, and then one Jew walks into that shtibel. So you get swept up, and then another one swept up. That's how it works. And that's supposed, and Klal Yisrael doing this as a whole, so then any non-Jew that sees Klal Yisrael goes, woo, amazing. And that's what Rav Kook is speaking about. And then there's no need for Milchama. Then there's no need for Milchama because everything just becomes Pashut. And that's the goal ultimately. Now, I don't know if we're out of time here, but Be'ez Hashem, we don't know what.
Yeah, but if we only relied on Hashem, the soldiers would not train.
I'm not saying only rely on Hashem. Chas v'shalom. At some point in time, the soldiers that we have will not need to go to war. We should still have soldiers. Shlomo HaMelech had shishim gibarim saviv la. Right? Shlomo HaMelech had he never went to war. Right? Everybody knew how to fight. They were well trained. They never needed to go to war. Why? Melech Shalom Shaloi. Because people looked at Shlomo HaMelech and they go, ooh, no, not touching him. But we should be zeicha that whatever's happening tonight, tomorrow night, should be nisim and neflosh.
What's happening? What's happening?
I don't know. They say I'm seeing on social media people are saying stuff is going on in Israel tonight. Don't know. I don't know. It's nope. That's it.